Hey folks, I'm at the Nerdcast with Omar. How we doing today, Omar?
We're doing. We just are currently.
So, what would you say about the Nerds of the Round Table? Would you highly recommend it?
I'm not entirely sure. I know what you're talking about, actually.
Nerds of the Round Table, our D&D club.
Oh, right. It's awesome. I'm enjoying it. I'm not doing D&D. I'm doing Pathfinder because I simply think that Pathfinder is a superior system because the funny numbers go way higher. But it's incredibly fun.
Do you like to role play, or what do you prefer, role playing or DMing?
I prefer. Well, like I said, I've never done DMing much, like at all. I've done like a single like session with my friends on D&D Fifth Edition, where I was the DM, but it's been a fat while since then, and I think during the summer we'll try and pick it back up. But yeah, that I do enjoy the DMing part. It was kind of fun. But I have been a player on the Pathfinder table for a while now, and it is really fun to be able to just do these kinds of things and just play with my friends on D&D. It's great.
Yeah.
Or Pathfinder, I guess, in this situation. It's been a lot of fun. And I want to keep doing more of that, basically.
Are you familiar with World of Darkness?
Not much, no.
It's pretty freaking gothic and dark. And it's not very combat focused. It's more like politics and like drama based than anything else. Unless you're talking about like Werewolf or Hunter of the Reckoning. What's your take on Cyberpunk, the role playing game? How do you feel about its system?
As a tabletop game, I've never experienced it. But I've heard that it is one doozy to try and get into. It runs on a D10 system rather than a D20 system, which is interesting.
Yeah.
Because the numbers overall are smaller but more precise, which is interesting. I would love to try it one day, but as for right now, I don't got much, time for it. But if I did get into it, I would build my character in a way that would allow me to get the most amount of chrome possible. Because the flesh is weak and I crave the certainty of steel.
So I role played Cyberpunk last year, and with our mutual friend of ours, Munch. So you know what happened in the game?
You all died.
Well, I specifically was a drugged out rocker boy cultist / Twitch streamer that dug out the remnants of the Pope's robes and his hat, wore them, made my own cult on Twitch, and the first game, I died of a drug overdose.
Good job. This is why we don't take the drugs of the world of Cyberpunk. They're laced with, I don't know, gigafentanyl.
What's your take on the Cyberpunk video games, 2077? I recently finished it. What's your favorite ending? What do you think they did right?
What I think they did right is most of the game. What they did wrong was launching it in the way that it was. If they had given it a little bit more time to flesh out the bugs and issues,
yeah,
it would have been a much greater game. As for endings, I've done a handful of them. I've done the Nomad ending.
That's my fave.
I've done the solo run ending.
Yeah.
And I've done the Sokka ending. The Sokka ending is... I don't like it. The solo ending is really interesting because if you fail it and die while fighting anyone, the game does not let you retry and treats it as though you got the suicide ending.
Who do you think is better at game design role-playing games, BioWare or CG Project?
CD Projekt
Red.
I'd have to think about... See, BioWare's had a lot of blunders lately.
Anthem.
Not ignoring their live service games. Inquisition as a game, the gameplay of it sucks so hard.
Story's good.
Story's good for Inquisition, but wow, does the gameplay just not do it for me. When
I
played like Dragon Age 1 and Dragon Age 2, Dragon Age 1 was nice, but what really carried it was the story. Dragon Age 2's gameplay is the best in the series. Every class feels like it's strong. Every single, ability feels like it has weight. In Dragon Age Inquisition, it feels like you're throwing pea shooters at them. I'm playing on the easiest difficulty, and it still feels like it takes too long to kill enemies.
Okay, who do you think has better story writing, BioWare or CG Project?
BioWare does really good on their character stories, but for an overall story, CD Projekt beats it, because the overall stories of a lot of BioWare's games are sort of whatever.
Yeah.
Most of the time. Like, Mass Effect 1 was interesting, but as it progresses, it gets weaker. Mass Effect 2, great game overall. Still gets a little weak towards the end. And Mass Effect 3, loved it, But wow, did it get really weak at the end.
Well, then there's the DLC, which expanded the endings, and you got more cutscenes. How does you feel
Still
about
was
that?
weak. And I don't know how I feel about it because I don't care for it. It felt like it was something that should have been in the base game anyways.
What was the ending you chose for the end of Mass Effect 3? Which ending you thought was the best?
Destruction. I chose to basically destroy everything, and then it could be possibly rebuilt, and then no one has to have to deal with anything trying to tell them what to do.
Because the Reapers were...
The Reapers are gone now. And now there's a possibility of, in the future, people make an AI that destroys them. But end of the day, that's their choice to do.
Because now the beings of the galaxy can decide their own fate. They can decide their own
There's
destiny.
nothing out there that's watching them, waiting for a moment to kill them all.
What do you think about Mass Effect Andromeda?
I like it.
What stands out about Mass Effect Andromeda? Why do you think it gets so much crap?
Because it launched in a bad position, like most games in the modern gaming sphere. Buggy. The facial animations were horrendous. The graphics are still kind of really bad, honestly. And the character creation is absolutely garbage.
Well, how'd you
all in all, it's a really good game in my opinion.
how'd you feel about shifting away from military combat from Mass Effect 3 to a more like exploratory colonization?
I think it was way cool. The gameplay of Mass Effect Andromeda, and I might get flack for this from a lot of people, had the best gameplay. I love the openness that you can approach combat with.
Exploring planets.
The exploring planets was cool, but it was not the focus for me in that game.
It's better than Mass Effect 1.
Yeah, that's not very hard to do. Mass Effect 1's planet exploration was bad. My most fun parts playing Andromeda was just getting into firefights and just like taking up the high area by jumping up and then using my booster to keep me up. I played like a pure biotic build, and it was awesome. I do have to say that like it did have a couple of issues here and there. Like hard difficulty feels like really bullet spongy, but all in all, really solid game.
What was your favorite? Who was your favorite character in Mass Effect Andromeda? Like that you romanced, that you pursued a relationship?
Favorite romance? I only ever got one proper game playthrough done, so I only ever romanced Suvi.
Is she the Asari?
No, she's the Scottish scientist lady who like believes in God and shit, and is only romanceable by a female writer.
That's good storytelling. That is good storytelling.
Her whole thing is that like some people would consider it that it's weird that she's both believes in God and is a scientist, but she basically says that like my belief in God is my science is what makes me believe in God. Seeing like how intricate everything in the universe is could only have been done by some kind of higher power. That's how she thinks of it, and it's I kind of vibe with it because that's how I think of it.
I can vibe with that. Yeah. What was your take? So when it comes to the satire of religion, do you think Dragon Age does a good job of satiring religion? And what do you think Dragon Age does well when it comes to Chantry? What stands out about it?
The Chantry is an interesting group because in most of the games now, like in Mass Effect, not Mass Effect, sorry, Dragon Age Origins, the Chantry barely plays a role like whatsoever. You don't really get to know much about them, but you get to see them here and there, and you get to get an idea of what they're like. Dragon Age 2 puts them in the forefront, and with its representation of the Chantry, with that one like lady, you get a decent look at them of people who are trying to do their best by the people. But then in Dragon Age Inquisition, you really see the worst of the Chantry.
The corruption, the Templars.
Like, not the Templars technically aren't a part of the Chantry.
Aren't they? They are the Chantry's military.
Technically, yes, but they're also something separate from the Chantry, which is why they can split off so easily.
So,
but
you're talking about the Inquisition.
I'm talking about the Chantry themselves, like with Grand Chancellor Roderick, or the High Mothers in the Chantry. All of them are spending more time politicking than they are trying to seal the giant hole in the sky that is pouring out demons at all given moments, because they think that this one person who might have caused the problem is free now. So they are politicking first and foremost.
What I really like about Inquisition was like how the Chantry's fallen apart into numerous denominations. You have the Inquisition, which is like what the Chantry should be.
Technically, it isn't what the Chantry. It isn't what the Chantry should be. It's more what the Chantry was once.
Yeah.
It's because here's the thing: things have to change over time.
Yeah.
the way what the Inquisition does is that it resets a bit of neutrality. It pulls us back a little bit, but it doesn't change everything. It just makes it so that everything sort of takes a step back.
Resets.
A little bit, yeah.
Do you think the Inquisition changed Thedas for the better, in your opinion, by the end of Dragon Age Inquisition?
Depends on the ending you choose.
Who would you choose?
What's it called? Or about the ending for Trespasser, or are we talking about like for the Inquisition or the Chantry? Because for the Chantry, on my first playthrough, I chose Cassandra.
I chose Liliana.
And then on my second playthrough, I think I did Liliana, but I can't remember. Actually, no, I didn't. I still did Cassandra again. That was for a different playthrough when I was like making a playthrough where all three of the protagonists survived.
But you're saying?
But like, I just chose Cassandra because it felt like... Actually, no. I can't remember what my second choice was. My first choice, I chose Cassandra because she was my favorite character, and I just thought, choose Cassandra for everything. Second time around, I chose Liliana, I think, because I had basically, like... It had sort of hit me that, like, if you manage to soften Liliana before you put her as, the Divine, things get a lot better for people, and she's not still and basically thinking like an assassin and having people killed.
She becomes a reformer. She becomes a reformer.
Yeah, she's a reformer either which way. It's just that the idealism of it changes depending on whether or not you manage to soften her or keep her hardened like she is in the end of the base game. Because if like in the base game, she'll just kill a person simply because like they had betrayed him, even though she could have like interrogated him for information or done something to figure out what had caused the betrayal. Instead, she just goes for the immediate kill him, which is not a great way to go about things. So if you manage to soften her down from that, she'll properly like take the chance to like talk to people and try before resorting to murder, which is the best thing.
Something I always liked about Inquisition and probably all the Dragon Age games is the various perspectives that people have the Chantry, how they live their faith out. You know, as a Christian, theist more than anything else. I really like how there's good people in the Chantry, there's terrible people, and they're all like have their own interpretation of this holy book, and they're all trying to like make the world match what they want it to be. You know what I'm trying to say here?
I guess most of what I think about when I think about like people talking about the Chantry is just how different followers tend to view religion in the Chantry and everything like that. Like talking to Varric and him seeming like your standard like not really big believer guy who's just like, boisterous in the moment, all that kind of stuff. But then you talk to like, for example, Cassandra, and you find out that he's like deeply Andrastian, like actually like is a proper religious person. He just doesn't show it very much, and he worships in his own way. And then you look at Cassandra, and like she's devout, but at the same time she's having a sort of crisis because of how the chapel is like just straight up working right now as a group of politics instead of trying to help the people. It's interesting to see everyone's different takes on it. Like, for example, Dorian as well, with his completely different kind of Chantry. It's an interesting thing to look at.
Yeah. So, change subjects. So, what do you think stands out about BioWare as a game developer? And what are you looking forward to their games going forward?
I've always thought that BioWare does the best storytelling when it's writing character stories. Their overall stories for games are really good. Most of the time, they're not bad most of the time.
Yeah.
But like, where the games really shine is the stories of individual characters. So, looking at like Zevran's story in Dragon Age 1, which was my personal favorite companion quest.
Yeah.
And him like not really having known much of life outside of being an assassin. And one of the few things he had that like a comfort to him was the smell of freshly made leather. And then that's a really interesting character, and it's some of the best writing in the game. And then looking at Dragon Age 2 with Fenris's story, which is my personal favorite again, with his story of like him not remembering anything but like thinking that he was basically cursed to have this magic tattooed into his blood and everything like that, and then finding out at the end of his questline that he had basically worked for it himself before he lost his memories, and he lost his memories because of what happened afterwards. It's a really interesting story. Then in Dragon Age Inquisition with Cassandra, where like you're seeing her like deal with the fact that she doesn't know if she believes she's basically believing in what the Chantry stands for, not what it's doing, and helping her basically reconcile that with herself It's really, really interesting character writing. But the stories themselves, the overall branching narratives, never get that interesting.
My favorite character story from Mass Effect is Garrus. Okay, I love his character and how it's written.
The way BioWare writes their characters is incredibly good. Garrus going from like this cop basically that wanted to get things done no matter what happens, and like in Mass Effect 2, basically like being so caught up in his own personal vendetta that he doesn't even realize that the guy who had betrayed them was so racked by guilt that he couldn't fucking like function as a person anymore.
Yeah.
He was a nervous wreck at every given moment because he felt so bad about it, and he was worried that that Garrus was gonna kill him, and he didn't even know if he cared anymore. That's how bad he felt. It's really interesting, and then seeing his like at the very end with like Mass Effect 3, him like properly coming into his role in Turian society and like being like this like semi-respected commander, because they still didn't respect him quite so much yet until the events of 3 started and like the whole like Reaper invasion started.
Yeah.
Then they started respecting him proper. It's really interesting to see his story develop.
Didn't they hit the hint that he was actually like a general or something by Mass Effect 3?
He is a general, just not one that like was properly like given resources. Like he was sort of like a general in name, but not quite in actuality.
Yeah.
But when the Reapers started attacking and they realized that he was the only one with actual proper information on how they function, more than anyone else in the entire galaxy, basically.
How'd you feel about Zavik?
Javik?
Javik, the Prothean.
I don't care for him at all. I think
I
he's
like
the most
his backstory. I
boring
like
character in
his
the game.
backstory.
I think he was he's like the second most boring character in the game, and the only reason he's second is because James exists. I hate him.
You hate James Vega too?
He's the worst character in the game. Oh my god. Boy Scout.
Vega?
Yes. The most boring Boy Scout in the world, and if you don't understand, and if you haven't watched the anime or read the comics, you have no idea who this guy is and why he's there. I don't care for him. He's stupid.
How do you feel about Spectres? How do you feel about them as an organization?
I think they're cool in theory, but I would not want to have an organization like that happen, because then you have individuals like in Mass Effect 2,
Saren.
the lady. No. I'm not talking about Saren. Saren thought he was doing well by the people, because he all he had seen was that there is a race of robots coming to wipe everything out like they've done multiple times before. He had a genuine mental breakdown after that, and I understand that. I understand him trying to work towards like a situation where people don't die, and instead they're like in servitude, because servitude is better than death in his opinion. I respect his what he thinks is the right way, because he was terrified. What I'm talking about is the Asari chick from Mass Effect 2.
Oh, yeah, that chick.
I hate her because she justifies doing some of the worst things, like trying to kill someone for just being like an information broker who was like looking into the wrong thing, because some information broker said, hey, do this for me and I'll give you more information that can help you save other people. That is a thought process that should not be followed. You are straight up killing people who could do good simply because your boss told you to, so you can get a bribe, basically. She is a terrible person, and she is the reason why the Spectres is, in my opinion, not a great idea. Because if something like that were to exist in the real world, we'd have a lot of people like that.
Yeah, I love the Shadow Broker as a concept. It's really cool.
Concept?
That
Pretty
DLC
cool
was
character.
awesome. That DLC was awesome, okay?
The Shadow Broker as a concept, pretty awesome. And especially when, like, basically done as when Liara becomes a Shadow Broker. It's a really cool concept. But wow, getting to the Shadow Broker himself and realizing that it's just a stupid boss fight where you just shoot him until his shield goes down and then punch him 3 times in a row is so lame.
I liked that boss fight.
It's so lame.
I
I've done it a million times.
His mission, okay? I liked that DLC.
The mission leading up to that point is just more Mass Effect 2, which I don't care. I like Mass Effect 2. So I thought, I don't mind that. So the mission up until that point, great. But at that final boss, wow, I do not care.
So how do you feel about, what do you think of the Leviathan story arc? The Leviathan DLC?
God, I feel like that's kind of stupid, honestly. Like, I get where BioWare was trying to go with that, with like the last of the people who actually made the Reapers.
Cthulhu.
But what they did was make the Reapers infinitely less interesting.
You think it's more interesting that the Reapers are unknowable? And
Exactly. I think if you left the Reapers with no defined start point, and just kept it like that, where they're just a something that showed up with no start points as far as you're aware of,
yeah,
and just kept going throughout literal millions of years, destroying civilizations over and over and over
you gotta
again.
admit, the original Mass Effect trilogy did have an amazing concept with the Reapers.
It
in
had
the
a
story.
great concept. It just kept blundering every single game. Every single game had a blunder here and there. In the first game, killing off Sovereign was a big mistake. If they had made it so that he could escape and then cause more problems in the future, that would be more interesting. Because when you manage to kill off the big bad guy of the first game, every subsequent game just makes you feel like the Reapers are not as big of a threat. Mass Effect 2, with the collector storyline is great and all, making this like giant pseudo-human Reaper thing, lame. Doesn't matter. Ended up being
It's
crappy
body
boss
horror.
fight again.
It's body horror.
It really isn't. It's just people being liquefied and turned into a machine.
Well, you are familiar with what that. There's more to it than just using the genetic material to make a Reaper, right?
It's basically
Their consciousnesses are downloaded into a.
That's cool and all.
And there's kind of a really effed up thing to it. Like, it's our way of preserving your species once we're done exterminating you, which is a really effed up concept.
That's cool and all, but it was also still lame. Because it just doesn't matter at the end of the day. And then with Mass Effect 3 and the fact that, like, the Reapers end up being a chase sequence when you scan a couple times too many in a solar system. Like, what is this? What are we doing here at that point?
I still thought Mass Effect 3 is best of the trilogy.
I think Mass Effect 2 is the best of the trilogy when it comes to like the gameplay and the story. The best story was in Mass Effect 1. The best gameplay was in Mass Effect 3. Because Mass Effect 1 had the most consistent story throughout.
Yeah. Where do you see... Okay, so there's a Mass Effect 4 on the way. Do you have any theories what it's going to look like? Where do you think they're going to go from here when it comes to Mass Effect storyline?
Well, they're probably pulling us back to the Milky Way, for being honest. What I'm hoping for is a story that's sort of similar to how Dragon Age 1 did its story, where the protagonist is a person you make, and is while you'll go through generally the same story, the protagonist is a different person, basically, technically, with a different origin that is actually like felt. I don't want it to be like, oh wow, I know
Commander
you.
Shepard, V, whatever.
No, because like here's the thing, right? With like for example, with Commander Shepard, your two choices for your character's origin show up like 3 times in the entire trilogy, and that's it. And it doesn't matter at the end of the day. It sucks. I want it to be like some people refusing to talk to you, and you have to work around it. There's a game that does this called Arcanum of Magica of Steamworks and Magica Obscura. One of the buggiest CRPGs to have ever existed.
Yeah.
And even with fan patches, it's still pretty much still up there in that title. But the world and the way that your character's race, gender, and like background matter is insane. If you make, for example, a half-orc who's not very smart, some people will refuse to talk to you because of the fact that you're a half-orc. And sometimes, like, people will be like, you're just stupid. But if you do right by them, you'll actually gain more affinity from them because they'll be like, at least he's trying. Or you could make a guy, like a human male guy, right? Who's like a charlatan, basically, like a con man. You can recruit people that you never would be able to recruit otherwise and have a bigger party overall and be able to play the game like that. And the fact that, like, some people straight up won't talk to you depending on who you are is insane. There is a quest line in that game that you cannot approach if you are a half-orc at all. It is off the table. There's a couple of quest lines in that game like that. It's really cool. And I want to see something like that in modern games. I want to see something like that in Mass Effect 4. Where if for example, you can make your character and you make, for example, a Solarian, you have to work extra hard to impress the Krogans so that they will actually give you work. That would be interesting because the Krogans don't care about the Solarians. They think they're weak. So if you had to earn their respect, that'd be cool. Or if you're playing as, for example, a Nasari, people would be like, what's it called?
Flirting with you 24/7. People will be flirting with you 24/7.
Or not that, but more like certain quests would be like, what's it called? More easily accessible because people are like, oh, look, it's an Asari. They're powerful biotics. But then, like, I want to see something like that happen. Where, like, your character's race and, like, all that actually factors into how the world treats you. That would be really interesting.
What do you think? What do you think we'll see the galaxy's gonna look like in Mass Effect 4?
If we're going by like within one person, like depends on how many years it is. Like if we're going by like a whole like 20 years, not much different. But then again, I wouldn't see what the big threat would be in Mass Effect 4 if it's like 20, 40 years, something like that. But if we come to like 1,000, 2,000 years later or something like that, and like the world should probably be really different at the very least.
Because there might be like some hints to like that the long ending of the Mass Effect 3, that's the storyteller and the child. You know, there might be some elements of that in there.
That'd be interesting, but I don't know, because like, it's just really weird, and I feel like if they were going to continue Mass Effect, they should have continued it with Andromeda, like continuing the Andromeda galaxy.
The cat were a cool species.
The cat?
Yeah, they were a cool antagonist. Okay,
they were. I feel like their motivations were weak as hell, but like overall, I don't know. When I used my sniper rifle and I shot them in the head and their head go pop, it was pretty interesting. Other than that, I felt like the cat were kind of boring.
So have you seen the trailer for Mass Effect 4?
There's a trailer?
Yeah.
I didn't know that, actually. I have not seen
it. Liara's in it.
Oh, okay. Then it's not going to be 2,000 years later. It's going to be at least within one Asari's lifetime. Interesting. If they put Liara in the story, I don't want her to be a companion.
I want her to be, there's like some...
A quest giver? Maybe. But a companion? No.
There's some
Because
hints.
here's the thing.
Yeah.
I don't want them to pull another Varric.
Oh, yeah.
Varric, as a companion in Dragon Age 2, was a really good character, and I liked him.
Yeah.
But as a companion in Dragon Age Inquisition, it's so stupid, because no matter what you do, you can never make him not like you, basically.
Yeah.
If I make a choice to enslave mages, I wouldn't expect Varric to agree with that choice. And yeah, he's like, you had to make a tough choice, boss. I wouldn't have done that, but you know what? You did it. Good on you. No, that's not what I'm looking for. I want him to have an actual character. I want him to disagree with me, and we have a minor argument with it. Like, for example, what you have to talk with, what's it called?
Cole?
Like Dorian. No, Dorian. Right?
Yeah.
When you talk to Dorian after having chosen to like save the mages and make them full partners.
Yeah.
Talking to him and him bringing up the fact that like you've opened up a door to make your part of the world a lot more like mine, with mages having a lot more freedom, and that's an interesting thing. Or when you when you side with the Templars and you haven't spoken with Solus yet, right?
Yeah.
If you've sided with the Templars fully, he doesn't want to talk to you like at all about his past. Because he basically makes it out that he's afraid that you will basically turn him into the Templars if you haven't spoken to him previous to that point. And that makes sense. I want to see more of that. But Varric is just, you did what you had to do, boss. It was a tough choice. It's boring.
Yeah, but Varric is a bro, okay?
He's a bro. Cool. But a bro has their limits. They have things that lines that do not get crossed in their opinion.
So, in closing, what would you recommend BioWare games to people, and how would you recommend people going about BioWare games, or are you excited for the future?
I recommend people playing BioWare games because overall they have really good stories, really good characters, and really good, worlds to explore. If you're going to get into a BioWare game, I'd honestly start with the Dragon Age series because in my opinion, it's a little bit better, gameplay-wise. I would say play Dragon Age 1, play Dragon Age 2, and then play Inquisition in that order. Do not do what I did and start with Inquisition because it really messes with your chronology and how you approach the other two games.
Yeah.
If you're gonna play Dragon Age, get ready for Dragon Age Inquisition to just be a completely different gameplay experience. Get ready for Dragon Age 2 to be the best gameplay experience in the entire trilogy, without a doubt. And anyone who says otherwise, clearly you have bad taste. And if you're gonna play the Mass Effect games, the gameplay is pretty solid all the way throughout. The first game's gameplay is weak, but the story is amazing. Mass Effect 2's gameplay is awesome. Mass Effect 3 has, in my opinion, some of the best gameplay when you're doing the Vanguard class.
Yeah.
And you get to you're losing your shield and you just charge into a guy, get your shield back, and then shoot him with a shotgun. It's pretty cool. Those are 3 great games. Andromeda, if you want to play it, you don't have to play the other games. You should, but you don't have to. And overall, don't play Anthem. That's just the one BioWare game that I can't recommend.
And are you hopeful for the future BioWare?
I have hope, but then again, I am a fool who has been burned many times before by his hope. So, I don't know.
Well, thanks for the show, Omar. Appreciate it.
Yep.
Thanks. Take care, folks. Until next time, stay sane.